The Kings with a big bounce back win after losing to the Milwaukee Bucks. They come home, national TV game against the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, and they are able to absolutely battle down the stretch to win this one, 132-127. It definitely was not comfortable down the stretch. I don't think the Kings played well down the stretch necessarily, but the one thing that they did do that I will never take for granted when it happens is that they made their free throws down the stretch of this game. That is something that we've seen too many times, especially last season. When you don't make your free throws and all of a sudden Jalen Green's hitting a massive three, that makes much more of an impact. But instead we made our free throws, and that kind of bailed us out of some pretty poor play down the stretch of this game, both offensively and defensively. This is just one of those games where I feel like it checked a lot of boxes for me in terms of this win. Like, one, it's a home win. And we know how bad this team has been at home. But you're coming off of a big road trip. You go 2-1. You're feeling good. The crowd's pumped. National TV game. And they are actually able to come out and win a close game where the other team battled back from down pretty big in the second half. You're able to win without Keon Ellis down the stretch, without Sabonis down the stretch who fouled out. So I feel like in that way, it checked a lot of boxes. There's still a little bit left to be desired. Allowing 42 points in the fourth quarter is not great, and Sabonis fouling out was also not great, but Keon Ellis being out is definitely a big part of that. So that gave, while the game looked like it still might go the Rockets' way, which was really right until the end, I was still kind of thinking, like, this seems like a game that the Kings were losing early in the season because they aren't playing any defense. And yeah, they scored 42 themselves in the fourth quarter, and the offense, for the most part, was flowing, and then they just, have a quick 2-minute breakdown and it completely throws the game away, because we saw that way too many times early in the season. The one that always comes to mind is the second game of the season, where it was just a quick 2-minute spree from LeBron and the game was over, even though you try to come back late. So it doesn't always have to be in the last 2 minutes, but it feels like so many times the Kings have lost games this season because their defense just lets up for a 2-minute stretch, and in that stretch, their offense also lets up. And that was very much a case down the stretch where the Rockets' defense was swarming. The Kings were turning the ball over. The Rockets got this one very, very close. But the Kings were able to survive, and they're turning their clutch time record around, which is good to see. But this was a very fun game to watch as a Kings fan, because I feel like the Kings played really well for almost the entirety of the game, except for a portion like the end of the third quarter and then towards the end of the fourth quarter. But the rest of the game, they played really well. Starting out in the first quarter, I thought Sabonis was dominating defensively. He was playing solid defense on Şengün whenever he tried to back Sabonis down. He was super good at contesting shots at the rim. He was contesting Jalen Green at the rim. He was contesting everybody, and he was really controlling the paint and limiting the Rockets' points in the paint. And in that whole first half, really, the Kings did limit the Rockets in the paint. That definitely changed in the second half. But the Kings were really trying to lock down the paint, and a big part of that was Sabonis. On the other side, the Rockets were definitely trying to do the same. Although it was interesting how the approaches to guarding Şengün on one side and Sabonis on the other side differed. Because the Kings were just having Sabonis go one-on-one with Şengün and saying, okay, if Şengün makes a mid-range shot or a long-range shot, or if he gets a hook shot to go over Sabonis, so be it. We're taking away everybody else, and we're trying to force everyone else into tough jumpers. On the other side, the Rockets were trying to lock down the paint when Sabonis had the ball in the post. They were trying to swarm him. They were not letting him go one-on-one with Şengün, and they started Jeff Green and put Jeff Green on him for a time, which was interesting. But I think that probably just has to do with their game plan of knowing that they're going to swarm to the ball so they can have Jeff Green on him. That means you have Şengün as a help defender. And so you could see first few possessions, the length of the Rockets coming into play, surrounding Sabonis, or when Monk would try to get inside, knocking the ball away. But then I feel like the Kings kind of adapted to what they were doing. Sabonis knew that he was getting doubled. And I actually liked when the Rockets were doubling for the Kings. I think when the Rockets would let Sabonis put the ball on the ground and try to make a move into the paint and then swarm him, that's where the Rockets had success. But when the Rockets would try to just come on the catch or on the first dribble before he committed to any move inside, then Sabonis was just finding the open guy on the perimeter. And so that's where the Kings offense really took off. He would find the open player on the perimeter. One time it was Monk. Şengün, I think it was, closed out on him. Monk attacks that, gets to the rim and scores. And the early offense definitely was about Malik Monk taking it to the rim. Keegan also was very good offensively in this game. He was knocking down his threes. He knocked down an early one, also got inside for a score, so he had an early 5 points. And I think Keegan was also doing a good job in the first half against Jalen Green, apart from like one time when he lost him on a screen. But the pace of the game was a little slow to start off with. And I think you really saw, especially when the Kings made their substitutions, and they brought in Keon, Herter, and Lyles all at the same time, left Sabonis and Monk out there. I think that's when you really saw the pace start to increase. You saw Sabonis really start to push the pace and be purposeful in doing so. And you saw Monk really trying to push it to the rim in transition. And I think when you have a bench unit, especially one where it doesn't have DeMar DeRozan out there and even De'Aaron Fox out there, when it has Sabonis and when it has Monk, those two guys are so good in pushing it in transition. And when you have that bench unit of shooters surrounding them, it's very effective at pushing the pace. And even when that bench unit came in, the defense kept up. Kevin Herter got in on it with a block. Keon came in, hit 2 threes, including a step back 3 against Steven Adams, which was very cool to see. Keegan was just shooting it with confidence. Both Keon and Keegan were just shooting with so much confidence. I think when the defense did drop off was when Sabonis went to the bench, and that was the case for most of the game. When Sabonis was on the bench, the defense dropped off. You just didn't have that interior force to be able to contest shots. And that's why when people talk about Sabonis being a really bad defender, like, that's just not the truth. Because you see what happens when he goes off the floor and Trey Lyles is the guy around the rim. Instead, it's not good. Also, Trey Lyles came in and he did something that I've been talking about lately. He's always making bad passes after he gets the rebound or someone gets the rebound and then he gets the ball down at our end of the floor. He'll get the ball and him and Fox, they love throwing these terrible cross-court passes that get picked off. And he threw one where he hesitated, gave the Rockets so much time to see what was happening, then threw it to Fox. And luckily, it didn't get picked off, but then he comes up, immediately gets the ball, and then just throws it out of bounds. It's like, oh my God, you got away with the first one, and then you just throw it away anyways. Like, come on. But I thought the defense and offense really dropped off towards the end of that first quarter. Fox wasn't really getting too aggressive. I think he had a couple of pull-up jumpers. Trey Lyles wasn't hitting the 3. And while the defense did drop off, it wasn't like what we saw in the second half. So it did keep us in it. It kept us ahead in that first quarter. I thought there were some very good defensive plays from Fox. He had a very good defensive game, getting a whole bunch of deflections. And I thought the Kings as a whole were just very active in that first half, trying to take away the paint, make Şengün think without really committing to him when he was inside, and then recovering to the shooters, not letting Jalen Green get open. You had Domas blitzing Jalen Green, and then behind him the defense was very good, forcing a turnover. So the first half defense was just very good. There was a play when that bench unit was in there at the end of the first where Jalen Green is coming around these double screens. Keegan's trying to chase him, and Keon could have been the guy to switch onto Jalen Green, just made it so easy. But for some reason, it's Lyles switching on to him, and it just created this chaotic situation. It was very odd. So I think it's those situations where the team, when Sabonis goes out, isn't quite on the same page of how they're going to defend it. Because when Sabonis is in, he's not going after Jalen Green. He's not going to switch on to Jalen Green there. Everybody knows that. And so either Keegan's going to have to get there or Keon's going to switch. And I think that just makes things more simple. So there's a little bit of confusion there. But for the most part, very good defense. To start the second quarter, after I kind of noticed Fox not getting super aggressive, which is usually okay in first quarters just because he comes out very early and everyone else can cook in the starting lineup. But he needed to get it going towards the end of the first quarter, and he didn't. But then he came out first play of the second quarter. He attacked, got to the rim, and finished. So that was a nice thing to see there. But Lyles was really struggling with his three-point shot. And this is the thing with Trey Lyles. He's either super hot or super cold. On the season, he may shoot 37, 38% from three. You look at that, you're like, wow, very consistent three-point shooter, above average. But, it's kind of boom or bust for him. He either is going to have 3 games in a row where he doesn't miss a single three, or he's going to have 5 games in a row where he can't hit anything. And so he's in one of those stretches where he can't hit anything right now. But one thing I did like, he missed a couple, then he fakes one, takes Steven Adams off the dribble, drops Steven Adams to the floor, and Steven Adams fell a couple of times. It was a little weird, but he took it to the rim, and I think we've seen that a couple of times from Trey Lyles in these past few games. I think against Chicago, he did the same thing where he missed a couple, so then he pump fakes, drives to the rim, makes things happen that way. And the Kings went on a nice 10-0 run after the Rockets went on a little bit of a run, cut into the Kings' lead a little bit. Fox hit a 3. Sabonis got an and one that he didn't convert off an offensive rebound. Then Lyles hit a 3 after a pump fake, and that was his 1-3 of the game. Then I think it was Lyles that got a block. When I looked, it got credited to Sabonis. I mean, yeah, here it says Lyles doesn't have a block. It really looked like Lyles got the block. He was the main defender. Maybe Sabonis got a piece of it from the side. But it looked like Lyles got the block. Sabonis was running the floor, found DeMar for the layup. So the Kings were really moving the ball. They started playing with pace. DeMar was running, which is important. And then it kind of became the Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis show in the pick and roll. Either Monk finding Sabonis and Sabonis finishing a crazy finish for an and one, or Malik taking it to himself to the rim. Sabonis really was putting on a finishing clinic. Multiple and ones, multiple tough finishes through contact, and then he stepped out, hit a 3, and he is now top of the NBA in 3-point percentage, past Nikola Jokic, which is just kind of crazy to think about. Like, obviously, he doesn't shoot as much as some of the guards below him, and I don't even think he shoots as much or close to Jokic, but it's still crazy because he's still taking a considerable amount, much more than last season, and he's first in the NBA, and that's crazy. And it looked like it might have been a drawn up play for a Sabonis 3. And I'm sure it was like multiple options on the play, but one of the main options was definitely Sabonis 3. So they're drawing plays up for Sabonis now to get 3-point shots, I guess. I thought the Kings defense in that second quarter was really good in the half court. And that's the thing about this Rockets team. The Rockets are not a good half-court offense team. So that's kind of what you would expect, but it's also what you need to do. You don't expect the Rockets to be good in the half-court, but the Kings still need to come out and defend well. And so they still should get praised for actually doing it in the half-court and also rebounding well in the first half, limiting those second chance opportunities. And they weren't really giving up wide open threes, but they also weren't making things easy inside. They were forcing non-shooters, or not non-shooters, but just not the best shooters, to take some kind of contested threes. They weren't letting them be wide open. They were getting contests, and that's what you need to do against a team that's not the best 3-point shooting team. Where the Rockets really got offense was running the floor, either off of turnovers or just rebounding the ball and running hard. And they were just running hard off every miss and got so much offense, especially in the second half, off of just rebounding and going. And a lot of the second quarter, it was Şengün running the floor, getting to the middle of the paint, getting deep position against someone other than Sabonis. So is Trey Lyles down there, or is DeMar down there, or whoever. And that's tough because he gets so deep, and because it's in transition, guys can't help off the corners. So he was just getting some easy looks inside. But while Şengün got a couple of those, that's kind of when DeMar started to percolate a little bit. He started to take over a little bit. I think he scored 9 points in the second quarter alone and had 11 in the first half. And I thought he just picked his spots and his shots so well. He wasn't disrupting the offense in any way. He was running the floor, but in the moments where he had good mismatches on him, he was taking advantage, and he was super efficient in doing so. I thought in that first half, the ball was moving well. They were hitting their threes, their open threes. You had your important shooters in Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis confidently shooting. And they weren't letting the Rockets get too much in transition, too much in the paint, forcing them into tough 3-point shots. And that allowed them to take a 9-point lead going into halftime. The second half is really where Houston got the offense going. And it was just all about them running in transition. Every missed shot, the Rockets were just running the floor so hard. Amen Thompson was great in transition, but they were just getting so much more at the rim. And then they were also getting offensive rebounds, and they were just outnumbering us down low. It was as simple as that. And early on in that third quarter, Sabonis just picked up a soft touch foul. That was just him being dumb. And I mentioned this, obviously it's like his second foul. So he came into the half with just one foul. That was it. So you're like, how could he pick up 5 fouls in just a half? And he did it. And it was because he just had these dumb fouls where he would just put his hands on guys after they were already by him. He had such a good defensive first half. And it's because he wasn't fouling. His one foul was when he just got beat around the corner by Şengün and had his hands on him, and Şengün got the and one. Other than that, the defense from Sabonis in the first half was so good. In the second half, he just was taking these dumb fouls where he would just put his hand on a guy's back. And again, it's kind of really frustrating because he wasn't getting the same calls on the other end. But at the same time, he just has to be smarter. I do love Doug Christie's philosophy that he's brought in, though. And they showed it on the broadcast, him mic'd up and him just talking to the official, or not talking to the official, talking to Keon Ellis, just telling him to stop talking to the official. And the official was even like, no, you can talk to me. And Doug was like, no, he can't talk to you. Just focus on the game. Because that's something I talked about earlier in the season where it felt like at times the Kings didn't respond well to certain things happening with the officiating. So I think Doug Christie kind of trying to get rid of that. But Sabonis just has to be smarter inside with some of his fouls because it's not his fault that these guys are getting to the rim all the time. That's not all on him, but it is on him if he just reaches out and touches a guy instead of just letting him go and putting his hand straight up. So many soft fouls that led to and ones. You're already not going to block the shot or affect the shot. You just got to let him go. You're way too important offensively, especially when we don't have a good backup for him. And so things got a little worrying there. Had a timeout. Then Fox comes out, hits a big 3. Then DeMar got out again, was pushing the pace and got Jalen Green on him and went to work in the post. And then one of the most surprising plays of the whole night, the most surprising play, no doubt, is when Sabonis played good defense against Şengün, forced a miss. They were battling for the rebound. Keegan comes in, does what he's supposed to do. He got 11 rebounds in this game. He was very good on the boards. He did exactly what we needed because Şengün and Domas are fighting. So Keegan comes, grabs the ball. Then he goes coast to coast behind the back and finishes switching hands at the rim, getting the and one. I've never seen anything like that from Keegan. That was incredible. This was just such a good game from Keegan. Somehow he was a -3 on the night. Sometimes plus minus is stupid. This was a great game from Keegan, showing off his 3-point shooting, his defense on Jalen Green, although it was a little tough in the second half, but his first half was good. He was showing his ability to score inside, his ability to handle the ball, his ability to pass. He was passing well, pushing the ball up the court. Made a pass to a Monk 3 that Monk missed. He was wide open, but he missed, but Sabonis gets the rebound and gets fouled. And during that stretch, the Kings were just forcing the Rockets into tough jumpers, letting Dillon Brooks shoot some contested shots, letting Şengün shoot some shots from outside. In the half court, the defense was great. The Kings were playing at the pace they wanted to. DeMar pushing, finding Monk in the corner for 3. And it was just DeMar takeover. He posted up Amen Thompson, who's a great defender, and just shot over him. And I think because DeMar had it going, Doug Christie let him stay in. And so they brought in Keon Ellis and Trey Lyles instead of bringing Herter in with them for DeMar. And a little while later, I will tell you why I think this was a mistake. But then when those subs happened, the Rockets just started going to the rim. A lot of it was against Malik Monk. He was getting beat quite a bit to the rim. But some of it was just coming around screens, and the Kings didn't have that same team defense where they weren't allowing the Rockets to get into the paint like that in the first half. And the Rockets just started getting to the rim at will. And that pretty much lasted the rest of the game, to be honest. And what hurt really bad was Keon rolling his ankle on Sabonis. And so he only played 11 minutes in this game. He could have been very useful in that fourth quarter and to end the third quarter because we needed his defense really badly. And so the Kings' pretty big lead was down to 8 after Jalen Green hit a three when Keon rolled his ankle. And so there was a timeout and the Kings had a second to regroup. And during this time, Şengün was out. It was all Jalen Green. So I was just thinking, you got to make someone other than Jalen Green beat you. But then out of the timeout, Sabonis picks up his third foul on a loose ball foul. That one I thought was kind of weak. But then Sabonis went out. Lyles comes back in, Fox is in, Keegan's in, DeMar is not in. And so that's where I think the mistake was. Because DeMar, yes, he was cooking, but now you don't have anyone to pair with Fox. And so either you should have, if you really wanted to keep DeMar in there, you take Monk out, or you just take DeMar out in that window, because now you're out there with Fox and he's the only creator. You know, it's like you're relying on Devin Carter to be the other creator. But then something kind of surprising happened. Keegan kind of took it upon himself. He drove into the mid-range, used his body, had a nice fadeaway, hit that. Then he attacked a closeout from the corner, got a dunk. So those were big buckets from him to be able to create for himself off of the dribble. But still, overall, we needed another guy who could handle the ball out there, another guy who could make a play, another guy who could go get his own shot, because that lineup wasn't good offensively and it wasn't good defensively. That's where the Kings' lack of depth really shows, and that's where we really need Devin Carter to be our savior, because with Keon out, that was really rough. Because with Sabonis out, now the Rockets are killing us even more on drives. They're getting to the rim even easier. There's zero resistance from Trey Lyles at the rim. And because of the guys you have in there with no Keon Ellis, you're getting driven by even more. And I've always said the biggest thing with the Trey Lyles small ball five lineups is Trey Lyles has to be able to hit threes. And he couldn't do that. And the Rockets were just like, yeah, you can shoot. I mean, at the start of the fourth quarter, our only offense was pick and pop Fox, Trey Lyles. And Lyles misses, then Fox turns it over. So the Rockets were okay with Lyles just shooting these pick and pop threes. And we just had no other offense outside of that. And we're getting killed on the interior defensively. Steven Adams was a very big impact. Steven Adams is out there against Trey Lyles. That's the biggest mismatch inside that there could possibly be. Steven Adams was just setting screens, opening guys up, parking himself down low. Kings couldn't rebound the ball. Kings couldn't get around him to contest shots. He was just a massive wall in the middle of the paint. And, you know, the box score probably doesn't show it. I mean, it looks pretty good. He was a plus 16, so there you go. It does show it, right? 5 points, 5 rebounds for Steven Adams, 2 blocks. He was so good, the Kings just couldn't get around him. And so without Sabonis in, Steven Adams was just able to control the paint so well for the Rockets. And at the start of the fourth, it was still pretty bad. A couple of transition buckets for Amen Thompson, or one of them was he got fouled. And so really rough start to the fourth quarter. Then you put in pretty much everyone back into the game. And the Kings just played the starters a ton of minutes, with Keon Ellis out even more than you would normally think. They put him all in early in that fourth quarter and didn't take him out. And they went to the 2-3 zone to really try to protect the paint. And I thought it was solid. I thought Fox and DeMar at first were really solid at the top. Then it changed to Monk. Fox was just really good at disrupting things, and so were Monk and DeRozan. The one place it hurt was rebounding, really. And when Şengün would get inside and they weren't throwing bodies at him, again, they were letting him go to work. And I think when you let Şengün go to work, it does kind of slow down the offense. No one else is going to get going. And so it's okay. But when he gets such deep positioning, because we're in a zone, so Sabonis isn't battling with him way out on the perimeter, not letting him get position, that's where it's kind of a problem. And because Şengün's so deep, it's tough for Sabonis, and he gets into more foul trouble. So we really needed to start helping Sabonis down inside against Şengün once we went to that zone, because that's really what got him into foul trouble. The offense in that second quarter, it was Sabonis and Monk. 2-man game. In the fourth quarter, it was all Sabonis and DeMar 2-man game, really, at least in the middle portion. I mean, DeMar was hitting his middies, then Sabonis, Fox got the ball in such a good spot to take an open midi, but he was not good offensively in this game, and he was not good in the fourth quarter. And so he passed up a shot that he would normally take from the mid-range, and he gave it down low to Sabonis, who's battling against Steven Adams. I'm like, this is not good, because he can't move Steven Adams. But he hit a really tough hook shot, so it worked out. But I think that play kind of showed like Fox was just not really a factor. And I called that going into this game. I said we needed DeMar to have a big game because Fox is going to have Amen Thompson on him. And that's exactly what happened. Sabonis picked up 2 fouls in quick succession, but then the Kings went on a big run. And it was DeMar starting it off, a spin for a layup. Then he got doubled in the post. The Rockets started throwing numbers at DeMar. And because of the way DeMar plays, there's really no good time to throw numbers at him, because even when he puts the ball on the floor, he's pretty far away from the basket, so he's going to pull the defense pretty far, and he always has his eyes up. So he was super patient. They would bring the double. He didn't panic. He just waited for something to open up. He found Monk across the court on the wing. Monk hit that three. Then DeMar hit a tough fadeaway over Dillon Brooks. And then he found the same pass to Monk. This time, the defense commits to Monk. Monk gives it to Keegan in the corner, and he hits the three. Massive run. Kings go up 9. That was where you felt like, okay, that was a huge moment. It feels like the Kings should have this now. But then they came out of that next time out, and they were trying to go to the same play. They were absolutely trying to go to the same play. I think Dillon Brooks hit a 3. Then the Kings come down on offense. They're trying to go to the same play, getting the ball to DeMar in the post, but Fox tries to take Amen Thompson off the dribble. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'm sorry. Let's just keep going to Monk and DeRozan here. I get that Fox, he's like, I'm the guy. I got to get something going here. But, Monk and DeMar are cooking. You're calling this play because it's been working really well. But Fox just tries to go by Amen Thompson. That doesn't work. Luckily, the Kings kept the ball. But this whole possession that started with Fox trying to take Amen off the dribble and kind of disrupting the flow, it was just an awful possession because the Rockets were just swarming. And it ended up in a DeMar contested 3 at the end of the shot clock. But then Keegan bails us out. So we've kind of been bailed out twice. He gets a rebound. But then Monk gets Şengün switched onto him. Sabonis also has a mismatch down low, but Monk tries to go one-on-one. He loses his footing. We get bailed out again because Fox comes up with the ball. Fox drives. He turns it over, and the Rockets go the other way. Dillon Brooks hit another 3. All of a sudden, it's a 1-point game because we just went away from what was working. It was too much isolation other than DeMar in the post. DeMar in the post, that's fine, isolation. Trying to just take guys off the dribble from Fox and Monk. And I've talked about this a million times. DeMar can isolate. Nobody else can. Nobody else on this team has that ability. Fox trying to go by Amen Thompson, that's not going to work. Monk trying to go by Şengün, apparently that's not going to work even. These guys are so lethal in the pick and roll. Why are we having them isolate? It's just resulting in turnovers like it always does. And so that just, in a very short span, allowed the Rockets to go on a run because they were swarming. And then, a guy would get in trouble up top. All the Kings try to come up and help him. That just creates a crowd at the half-court line, and we turn the ball over. It's easy buckets for the Rockets all day. And then it got even worse when full court pressure from the Rockets and Sabonis has to come down. He catches it, and Şengün bats it off his leg, and we turn it over again. And the Rockets scored and went up 1. That's when things finally got settled down. But the Kings just, they can't afford to have runs like that. They can't go to these isolations. They have to make sure that Sabonis is involved, or that DeMar gets it deep in the post, or Sabonis either has the ball up top or he's coming to set a screen, because that's where the Kings are at their best offensively. When you go away from that, it has never worked. But they finally, kind of settled down, called a play. Fox got it. He got double screens up top. He drives, finds DeMar in the corner, who hit a big 3 to go back up 2. Then Fox makes a big play defensively, gets a steal. Monk drives in for an and one. There were a ton of and ones for both teams in this game. DeMar got an and one off an offensive rebound on the next play, I think it was. But then that's when Sabonis fouls out. He fouled out on what was just a dumb foul. He was parked under the rim. There's nothing he's going to do about this Şengün layup, and he just puts his hands out. And that's the instinct he has to stop. He has to stop with just putting his hands out. They either need to go up or they got to stay by his side. He can't just keep extending his arms. He gets called for it every time. And so he fouled out there. And I'm glad the Kings had a little bit of a lead because Lyles comes back in, and Lyles wasn't having a good game, and things didn't look good when he was out there running the 5. Fox came down, missed at the rim, and then what the Rockets were doing the entire second half. Fox misses at the rim. That results in a wide open corner 3 for the Rockets because they are so committed to running the other way. But then Fox came up with a huge offensive rebound with maybe 38, 39 seconds to go, something like that. He got fouled. That forced, or it didn't force, but Houston used their challenge. And that was also huge because, I don't know, they might have been able to challenge the next play where Fox got fouled by Dillon Brooks. But they were unsuccessful in this one. Fox clutch from the line. That puts the Kings up 3. Then Jalen Green just comes down right to the rim, past Keegan. No resistance from Lyles. Gets to the rim too easily. And I get you're playing no threes, and it worked out in the end, but that just kills me. When you don't waste any time and you're just looking at how the Rockets are defending with obviously the differential in length, and they're just able to deny the Kings from getting the ball in bounds and force the Kings to take so much time to get it up court. And the Kings, it's just Jalen Green's right to the rim. Then, like I said, Fox getting fouled by Dillon Brooks. I don't know if it was actually a foul, but he got fouled before the inbound, which was huge. We needed that point, the extra point that Fox knocked down, and then Monk gets fouled. He knocks those down. Or no, Fox got fouled, then he knocked them both down. Then Jalen Green comes up, hits a tough 3. Then Monk got fouled, and he hit them both. It's really this next play that really annoyed me, because that Jalen Green 3, should Keegan have been more up on him, up 4 maybe? I don't know. That's a tough shot. That's one where I'm not really sure. I mean, I do think he should be up on him, because I think the Kings' strategy should have been get the ball out of Jalen Green's hands, because no one else can really do what he does on this team in terms of scoring for himself off the dribble, especially with Fred VanVleet out. But the Kings up 3. Rockets inbounded. They get it to Şengün in the post against Lyles, or, not in the post, but he has his back to the basket. And right there, I'm like, foul. Are we going to have another Detroit Pistons scenario? And Jalen Green comes off, and Lyles doesn't commit to contesting the shot. I don't know what he was doing. We're up 3. Just go contest the shot. Who cares what happens inside? And we just get a lucky miss. Jalen Green got a really good look. That was awful defense from the Kings. You have to foul there. I don't know what this team's problem is. Foul up 3. It's not that hard. It was gifted to you. Şengün got the ball facing away from the rim. Foul. And then not contest Jalen Green's 3 by Lyles. I don't know what he was doing. But he missed. So we'll take it. But the Kings, it was a great win. Did a lot of great things in the middle portion of the game. But that's never really been the Kings' problem. It's always been closing this season. So, again, we just have to be better closing games, have to be smarter in these situations, and just more deliberate, because I think there were just too many possessions down the stretch where we're just kind of dribbling up top with no real reason, and it bleeds the shot clock, and it's just too much isolation. But we snuck away with the win. Fox, huge at the free throw line. Monk, huge at the free throw line. The Kings continue to be one of the best free throw shooting teams in the league somehow. Went 20 for 22 this game. Also shot well from 3, 14 for 33. This is an elite Rockets defense that the Kings were able to drop 132 on. They weren't full strength. Obviously, you have Jeff Green starting. That really surprised me. But Jeff Green starting. He only played 23 minutes. But putting up 132 points against an elite defense is very impressive. And the defense in the first half was very good. The rebounding in that first half, keeping the Rockets off the glass. The Rockets ended with 12 offensive rebounds. The Kings also got 12 offensive rebounds. It was a Sabonis masterclass in the first half. DeMar masterclass in the second half. And it was a game where Fox played poorly, and you're still able to come away with the win, which is big. But I think down the stretch, the fact that we come into a defensive possession, say the last possession where Jalen Green got that 3-point attempt. With Keon Ellis out, there's not a single defensive sub that we could have made in that scenario. That's really bad. That's really, really bad because you're not going to put a rookie in Devin Carter. There's no one else that you're going to put in. There's no size on the wing. There's no big man that you trust. So the Rockets, even though they were dominating the paint the entire time, especially against Lyles when Sabonis went out, it's like Lyles is your answer when you're trying to get stops at the center position. That's really bad. The fact that we have no defensive subs that we can make, despite having a starting lineup with Monk and DeRozan in it, 2 subpar defenders, even though Monk's been much better lately. That's just where this roster has to improve. I mean, you got to at least get, like a Kessler Edwards that we used to have, where it's like, yeah, he's not going to play, but at least you can throw him out there at the end of a game. Like, we don't even have a Kessler Edwards for a defensive possession just to throw in there. You know what I mean? You could try Jay Crowder, but he just gets so little playing time. I mean, he went a whole month almost without playing a single minute. He didn't even play in garbage time of games. So it's very clear where this team needs improvement, because especially with those lineups where it was just Fox out there and Keegan from the starting lineup, those lineups aren't good offensively or defensively. You got to pick one and get some help off the bench to either be good offensively or defensively. It doesn't need to be both, because this starting lineup is so good. 37 plus minutes for each of them, and you can do that in the playoffs, but when Sabonis fouls out, there's no depth to go to. But everyone in the starting lineup, 18 plus points. You had 7 plus assists on 3 of them. You had 11 plus rebounds on 2 of them. This starting lineup played so well. Get them just a little bit of help here. And hopefully Keon, his injury isn't too bad, because we desperately need him. I mean, Devin Carter just has to step up huge if Keon's out for any extended amount of time. But going through some of the individual performances, Sabonis, 38 minutes, 20 points, 14 rebounds, had the double-double in the first half, had 14 points, 10 rebounds. At halftime, add in the 7 assists, the block, and he was super efficient. He was defending super well in that first half, and it's just the foul trouble that killed him in this game. If he had just, pulled his hands back on a few of those, then he would be fine. Because here's the thing about the foul trouble. Some of them, you feel like, that was kind of a soft, loose ball foul or whatever. But when you're battling down low as a big man, like Sabonis does, you're going to get called for a few soft fouls a game, battling for a rebound or something down low. And so it's about what you can control. And he can control just not randomly putting his hands on a guy's back, not even when he's not trying to contest the layup. That's what he can control. But overall, very good game from DeMar, absolutely huge, 38 minutes. He scored 31 points on 12 for 23 from the field and 2 for 4 from 3. And I feel like he kind of likes that 4 3-point attempts per game number. 5 rebounds, 4 assists for him as well. Just a masterclass in the mid-range. Also got to the rim a few times, got an and one. Was the offense that we needed. We needed him to step up. We needed Sabonis and Monk to all step up coming into this game, because you knew that Fox was going to have a tough time against the length. Monk, 28 points, 9 assists, only 2 turnovers. He went 10 for 19 from the field and 2 for 6 from 3, knocked down those clutch free throws. Just a masterclass in the pick and roll with Sabonis, especially in that second quarter. I want him to be involved in the offense even more late with him and Sabonis. I just don't know why we go away from that pick and roll late in games when that's so much of our good offense. Then you had Fox, who played 40 minutes, went 6 for 17 from the field, went 2 for 4 from 3, knocked down a couple of big threes, 19 points, 7 assists, 3 turnovers, had 4 steals and a block. Very good defensive game for De'Aaron. Made some massive plays when it felt like things weren't really going our way, especially at the top of that zone, which kind of allowed him to roam around and just be able to sneak attack guys who were facing away from him. Offensively, though, he just really struggled against the length. Got blocked by Şengün a couple times. Threw up some wild shots around the rim. Few bad turnovers. And then you have Keegan playing 39 minutes. 18 points, 11 rebounds. 7 for 10 from the field. 3 for 6 from 3. Was showing his ability to create off the dribble. This was like the ideal Keegan Murray game, I feel like, because he played some solid defense. He knocked down from three and just punished guys who were closing out hard, punished a mismatch inside, ran the floor well, made smart decisions with the basketball. He doesn't need to be this big time scorer, but just a couple, 2, 3 2-point field goals a game, along with his 3-point shooting, is a pretty big difference for this team. The bench was really rough, mainly because Keon only played 11 minutes, and he was good in his 11 minutes, and then he rolls his ankle, but he had 6 points on 2 threes. But Lyles 1 for 6 from 3 and was getting killed at the rim. Kevin Huerter 2 for 4 from the field and 1 for 3 from 3. Only played 9 minutes though, which is probably about right, and that's even with Keon getting injured. So he really came in, played like 5 minutes in his stint in the first half, and then 4 minutes. So his minutes have dropped substantially, and yeah, it's about right. And then Devin Carter, 8 minutes, made a couple nice defensive plays, got a block. He like poked away a ball inside that just happened to go right to, I think it was Şengün. So it was a little unfortunate. Made some active plays defensively. There was one point where, with kind of the bench unit he was out there with, felt like he was the only ball pressure we had. And so that was a positive for him, not really for the rest of the team though. But like I said, only 8 minutes for him. Didn't score a point, didn't show too much offensively. The Kings' next game is an interesting one. It's because they get a couple days off, and then they play another home game on Sunday against the Wizards. This Wizards team is 6-33 and has won 1 away game this season. So this is a big game for the Kings, because they have a chance to get out of the cycle of being 500, where you win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. This is just the type of game where the Kings need to show that they can take advantage of a really bad opponent and just take care of business. On your home floor, they have a chance to get back to 500 at home. They're 11-12 right now. And there's really not too many keys to the game about specifically how you're playing against the Wizards. Obviously, they have some solid players. Jordan Poole's been pretty good. Alex Sarr, every once in a while, has a pretty good game. Kuzma's had a bit of a down season, but it's really just about the Kings sticking to the things that they always do, because you came off a big time win against the Rockets that was super hyped up. The crowd's got it going because you're on national TV against the number 2 seed, and now you come in and it's kind of the opposite feeling. Nobody else outside of Kings and Wizards fans are watching this game, and it's just about keeping the pace up, making sure you're still rebounding and going after rebounds on the offensive end, making sure you're not settling from deep in your offense. Just really, to me, it's about making sure you're still pushing the pace, because if you're pushing the pace against this Wizards team, they are not going to be able to defend you. So anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back on Sunday to recap that game against the Wizards, so I will see you guys then. Peace.